Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining. So, my name is Lindsay Dubin. I'm a senior account executive with Agosto. I've been in the Google space for over 9 years, and I've worked closely with the Schnucks team since 2016 alongside Google during their initial evaluation of G Suite. Agosto was also heavily involved and led the successful deployment, migration, and change management efforts from their Exchange environment to G Suite. Joining me today is Joey Smith, the Chief Information Security Officer at Schnuck Markets. Joey joined Schnucks in January of 2014, and prior to that, Joey worked for MasterCard Worldwide, where he was running the company's incident response program. Joey's now responsible for enhancing the security program at Schnucks and has a reputation for bringing the people, processes, and technologies needed to maintain a mature security posture. Joey was also crucial to the evaluation and implementation of G Suite and is here today to tell his story. So thanks for joining us, Joey.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay, for having me. I'm happy to be here and happy to tell the folks that joined the webinar here a bit about Schnucks and a bit about our journey to G Suite and some of the things that led up to that decision, and really just kind of an overview of our company and what we're doing now with G Suite and where we're planning on going. So if there's no other housekeeping items, I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
All righty. So, yeah, like Lindsay said, my name's Joey Smith. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Schnucks. I've been here for not quite 4.5 years, just over 4 years, and have been tasked with maturing the information security program here at the company. And really, before I go into, as a typical security guy, I've got lawyers just like most security guys, so I just have to open anytime I do any public speaking with sort of this caveat that everything that I say today isn't necessarily a reflection of my employer. This is my takeaways that I've learned in my particular experience, not necessarily representing Schnucks or MasterCard or any of the other places that I've worked in my career. And so that sort of makes the lawyers happy and I think covers us from that perspective. But before we get into the whole G Suite thing, I thought it'd be appropriate to sort of talk a bit about who Schnucks is and what we are. I think, if you're from the Midwest, in particular St. Louis, you're probably familiar with the company. But if you're not, you might not be. So I wanted to just sort of lay the groundwork just to let the folks listening know more about our company. So we're a third generation family-owned company. We were founded in St. Louis in 1939. To date, we operate right at about 100 stores and pharmacies, including multiple specialty pharmacies and specialty shops. We don't just operate in St. Louis. We actually have 5 states that we cover: Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Obviously a big footprint here in the Midwest. And we employ over 14,000 teammates. So we're pretty big, I guess you could say. So we're not publicly traded, but we are the 48th largest food retailer in North America, which is the country's 17th largest privately owned grocer. So for anyone in the retail industry, we operate about 55,000 SKUs per store. And more recently, we continue to look to grow. And I guess more recently, like June of 2016, we opened a 917,000 square foot distribution center right next to the St. Louis airport. You can see it pictured there in the upper right. It's about 16 football fields big. And this is where all of our or most all of our grocery product comes in and goes out of and is delivered to our stores. Moving on, we have a Schnucks Delivers is one of the more notable things that we more recently offered. The first major St. Louis retailer that offered home delivery of groceries, and we're in partnership with Instacart on that. That was a huge success. So we're now actually able to deliver groceries, or we're expanding to service all of our stores across the 5 states. And that was the biggest Instacart opening in their company's history, beating out Miami. So St. Louis and Schnucks is proud to have been so successful in partnership with Instacart. And you can kind of see in that map there, I used our website and found kind of where the footprint of our stores is. So that sort of gives you a visual representation of where we're located. Obviously, 72 stores in the Metro St. Louis area, but we're spread across those other 5 states. So one really cool thing that's always worth talking about Schnucks is their incredible commitment to give back, and their their ties to the St. Louis community and their commitment to making the St. Louis community a great place to work and a great place to live. And one of the ways that we do that at Schnucks, and really the family and the Schnucks company does that at work, is we offer a couple of really cool things. One thing in particular we call our eScripts program. And what's so cool about this is just as a customer, so I walk into the store and I buy my groceries, we can actually, by signing up for the eScripts program, you as a customer can earn up to 3% of your purchases, and you can select what school or nonprofit you want that 3% of your purchases to go to. So it's not money that Schnucks is pocketing. This is money that we're giving back to our St. Louis and communities that we serve in. And I really like it because it's not just something that it's not like a company organization that they've selected. It's literally what I want, what my wife and I want to give to. So we select where our kid goes to school, and we're able to give back a certain percentage of the groceries we spend at school at Schnucks to her school. And so it's been a really successful program, and annually we give away about just over $2 million annually. The company is a huge supporter of United Way. We partner with hunger relief organizations like Operation Food Search in St. Louis. And so it's a really, I guess the point I'm trying to make is we're a small Midwestern company, but we're really intertwined in the communities that we serve, and we're really looking to reach our customers and meet our customers' expectation by serving the communities and the charities that they want to. So it's really exciting to work for a company that gives back like that. And I'm honored every day working here and continuing to support those types of programs as their security officer. So I want to go back and sort of, as I transition into how we moved to G Suite, I want to kind of rewind the clock and sort of go, how did I get here, and how did Google kind of become on the really information security strategy? And so I want to take everyone back to the year of 2013. And this was what many analysts and security experts and bloggers, 2013, they considered the year of the mega breach. Now, things have changed, obviously, since 2017. These numbers aren't so staggering anymore, especially when you look at, in 2017, Equifax got breached, and it was like 145 million records went out the door. And the year before was Verizon with a ton. They were sort of like, hey, 2013, hold my beer, right? But when you look at some of these statistics, you're looking at a huge uptick in cybersecurity events from 2012 to 2013. Let's look at what they consider a mega breach, being over 10 million identities lost. In 2013, 2012, there was only one of those events. And then come 2013, there was 8. So you started to see this huge uptick in cyber breaches, merchants getting targeted, companies getting targeted for their data, for their customer information. And it was really kind of a benchmark year for information security professionals like myself, who were going, something's changing in our industry as security professionals. There's more that we need to be doing. And again, these headlines aren't new to anyone now that these numbers have continued to increase, but it was really 2012 to 2013 where you really started to see this huge uptick of cyber risk. And Schnucks was actually victimized of an attack at that time as well. And so while we were very local and intertwined into our communities, like I talked about, we also maintained a global security threat. And it was sadly something that we learned a bit of the hard way. So we do have a bit of a black eye in our history. And so back at the end of 2012 and really the beginning of 2013, Schnucks fell victim to a cyber attack. And it took a huge effort and partnership with a forensics firm to identify and remediate and contain. But it was ultimately about 2.4 million credit card and debit cards of our customers went out the door and were at risk. What was really, kind of sad about this event is that we didn't know about that happening. We found out by these news media outlets that were constantly knocking on the front door for interviews and trying to figure out more information. And it was really a time in our history that was quite embarrassing. When you look back, the family, the company, our teammates, we were shocked, dismayed, embarrassed. And from a retailer perspective, really the playbook back at this point in time of how to publicly respond to these types of breach events. That playbook hadn't really yet been written. Again, this was before Target and Home Depot and Equifax and so many others of today. I mean, the list goes on. We can name breach merchants all day long: Neiman Marcus, White Lodging, Sally Beauty, P.F. Chang's, Albertsons, Dairy Queen, Jimmy Johnson. All these merchants continue to get breached. Schnucks was really one of the first that was a huge public disruption. And maybe now in 2018, we kind of have reached, from a consumer perspective, what they would call breach fatigue. It's every week on the news. It wasn't like that at this time. So this was a huge event for the company. What attracted me to joining this company to lead the efforts of maturing our security program was what the Schnucks leadership team did in response to this event. They made it very clear that this event was not going to define us as a retailer and as a merchant. Rather, this event is going to be our finest hour. So we now have an opportunity to write the book on what a merchant does after a breach. And I was humbled and honored to be able to come in here and play part of that book, write part of that book. Certainly not everything I've done is in response to that, but it really was kind of what catapulted us into challenging ourselves from not only a technology perspective, but just the way that we operate and do business to get better. So we looked at this event, and as we look at this event, and which is now in our rearview mirror, and we've moved on and we've done some really great things, we look at that event as that was our finest hour. And we are now prepared to tell a much better story and serve our customers in new and exciting ways, and serve them securely in an effort to make sure that an event that catastrophic never happens again, right? So now G Suite is part of that story. It's not the only thing we've done, obviously, from a security perspective, but G Suite is certainly part of that story. And going back to about probably 2.5 years ago is really whenever the conversations around G Suite started. One of the guys that's on my team, his name is Mike. He's the manager of our endpoint and cloud security team. He came into my office shortly after we were responding to a ransomware attack that we saw on our network. We actually had a ransomware file that had made its way through our perimeter detections and gates, and it landed on one of our systems. And fortunately, because of some of the things that we had changed from our security posture, the ransomware didn't install or affect us negatively in any way, but still got through. It gave us all kind of a scare. We went through a bit of an instant response exercise. We figured out how it got in and made some changes to make sure that it couldn't get in again. And again, fortunately, the ransomware didn't negatively affect us at all. But like I said, it did give us a bit of a scare. And Mike, who is over our endpoint security team, he walks into my office and he asked me this question. And again, this is where the thoughts of moving to a cloud platform started to resonate in my mind. And he asked me, Joey, are you confident enough in our security detection response to go tell our CEO that he can fire you if our Exchange servers ever successfully hit with a ransomware attack? That doesn't mean we're not susceptible to ransomware or at risk at ransomware. We've done a lot of things to mitigate that risk, of course. But are you confident enough that if our on-prem unstructured data, our Exchange server is hit with a ransomware attack, he can fire you? We're confident enough that we won't get ransomware in that event. I look at him like any security guy. Well, no, not no, but hell no, I can't promise that that's going to happen. And he looks at me and goes, I have a way where we can really mitigate that risk. Let's move that risk of that Exchange server out of our environment and into the cloud. And so we got my attention and we started digging a bit deeper on what that really means. What does moving to the cloud mean? There's a couple of different providers that we can do with that, but it comes down to the availability of our data. In the event, whether it's ransomware or not even security related, maybe it's a network outage of some kind. Whenever that happens and our email servers go down, we've crippled ourselves of being able to communicate with one another. And that's a huge problem. So by getting our main source of communication out of an environment that's susceptible to outages and issues, when those types of things happen, not if, but when those types of things happen, at least we can still communicate with one another and start getting our resources aligned and start aligning ourselves to get back on track. So that's really how Google started for us. So we started talking about off-prem, what that looks like. We did some reviews. We looked at Microsoft O365. We looked at Google G Suite. And ultimately, I campaigned, and I was able to win over the approval of some other key leaders and key influential management in operations and in IT. And we ended up making the decision that we're going to go Google. I'll talk a bit now about what that transition looked like. It was a disruptive move for the company. And we tried to, I was operating through the lens of security, but we were also operating through the lens of how does this enable our operation and our store teammates and our store support center to better collaborate and get their job done easier and faster in service of our customers. So, I worked with the marketing team, and we came up with this sign. This is sort of our big announcement. Hey, insert happy trumpet sound. We're going Google. And these were the signs that we splattered across the entire company. It was just kind of high-level information. We've made this decision. These signs were probably going up about 2 to 3 months before what we call our global go-live date. And it was saying on April 24th, this is April 24th of last year at 9 p.m., essentially, when you come to work on the 25th, we're going to be a G Suite shop. Your email that you're used to, Microsoft, is not going to work anymore, and it's time to say hello to Google. What we quickly learned is, and for anyone who's considering going G Suite or maybe is in the process of making that transition now, what you've learned, or what we certainly quickly learned, is that promoting this via email and signs was just flat out not enough. It wasn't a strategy because people still weren't getting the message. Like I said, we have 14,000 teammates that this was affecting, and sending mass emails from me or even the CEO or whoever it might be, email is just not an effective form of communication when it comes to a disruption this big. So we had to get creative, and I really challenged my team, and ultimately we created a steering committee that I'll talk about in a bit, to let's eliminate the "no one told me about this" excuse. So what more? We were asking ourselves, what more can I do to make the fact that we're going Google not a surprise to anyone? So some additional strategies. This was something that I copied right out of a slide deck that me and my counterpart, vice president here in IT, we went to every single department meeting. We went to every single store division meeting. And we went to every single business leader across the entire organization. We showed them this one slide and we talked through it. And what I want to highlight about this slide is what we were doing was setting the why. We weren't in this slide telling anybody about what Google can do. We weren't saying, if you have the ability, you can still work with your Excel files, you can still work with your PowerPoints, and email and calendar are still for the most part the same. It's now just enabled on the web. We weren't talking about that kind of stuff. We were trying to set the why, so people understood, why are we doing this? And secondly, we were doing this in partnership with store operations. So this wasn't just another thing that the IT team decided to do to ruin my day and make my life a little bit harder. This is why the business is deciding to do this for us. Yeah, we can communicate more efficiently and store and share more easily and collaborate more effectively. And selfishly, I love the part about managing more securely as the CISO here. But that yellow part of this slide really went into the top level reasons of why we were doing it. We wanted to enable our teammates to innovate. We had nothing innovative at this point in time before we went Google. We wanted to, one of the things I really like to talk about, and I think is if for anybody who's in the security industry or a security leader at your company, was we wanted to enable productivity and get security out of the way. Security should never disrupt business operations, and many times security teams are guilty of that. I know I'm certainly guilty of it too with a lot of things we do, but whenever your security program is working the way that it should be, we should be enabling our teammates to work and work securely. Google offered us the ability to be able to do this. Another thing that was really relevant for us as a retailer was we're constantly hiring at store level. And we wanted to be able to attract, but not only attract a new workforce, but also retain that workforce. More and more people that are coming in as as new Schnuck employees will start at store level and work their way up. And they're out of college. The only email system that they're used to is Gmail. So why are we as business professionals asking our most valuable assets, which is our teammates, to come in and learn an entire new platform that they're not familiar with in Microsoft Exchange? So we want to attract and retain that talent. We got to the point where we were, in talks with HR, we were starting to hear people that were interviewing at Schnucks that weren't interested because we weren't the G Suite shop. And that was kind of an interesting takeaway. So again, setting the why. We had also in the time that I was here, and we brought in a handful of other IT leaders since post breach event. We had built and redid our entire network top to bottom, and we were very proud of that network. We had fiber lines running into all our stores. It was lightning fast network, and we weren't really leveraging it. There was nothing that we were doing before any of that huge infrastructure enhancements. There was no way we could ever have done a video chat. I mean, even doing this webinar would have been asking a lot. I certainly would have done this webinar offsite, not sitting here in my office, because I wouldn't have trusted that our network could handle the bandwidth that this has taken up. I'm sharing my screen with all of you now. We wanted to leverage that technical network that we created and start putting more things and really using it to better our stores and better our teammates. And again, G Suite being part of that. So we went around and we promoted our move to G Suite via some of these measures. My next slide here. Yeah, I've got some. These are some of the other things we did. We splattered these signs over all of our stores, various sizes, right in the hallways. We put them in the elevators. We really, again, wanted to eliminate that excuse of no one told me we were doing this. So whenever they came in that Monday morning, it wasn't like, hey, I don't understand why this is happening. So, our partners and our friends at Agosto really helped drive this strategy for us. They were really our change managers throughout this process. And they kind of talked to one of the strategies that they used was really breaking this up into 3 stages of deployment. Really, I guess, first of all, as a IT person is let's admit that this isn't going to be easy. I think it's easy because I'm relatively good working and figuring my way around a computer, but not all of our teammates are. So let's admit that, and let's figure out a strategy of deployment that will make it so this will be as painless as possible. And let's build some excitement around this, not just, another change. So they helped us, and they helped us strategize, breaking this into really 3 stages of deployment. Those 3 stages being core IT, a Google Guide program, and then ultimately our global go live. So our core IT was we turned all of IT onto Google first. And we did this leading up to the global go live. We wanted our IT resources, help desk, and general IT teammates to be on Google, be familiar with the platform. We're going to be the ones that are supporting this and are hitting the buttons and pulling the knobs behind the scenes. We wanted core IT to be on this platform early so they could really start to get used to some of the nuances that were a bit different. Probably more exciting than that was what they called the Google Guides. So what the Google Guide program was, and you can see there, I took a picture of Heather's desk. Heather's someone who works for me. We flagged and made real obvious our Google Guides. And so what we were doing for Google Guides was trying to get a group of our teammates to get on the platform early and just learn it. Google Guide is somebody that we were looking for as a good communicator, somebody who's credible and respected by their peers. We wanted our Google Guides to be comfortable with web-based technology and available, not taking a vacation during our go-live date. And we wanted these folks to just be familiar with the program, and we were drawing huge attention to them like we did here on Heather's desk to say, hey, you got a Google question, go ask a Google Guide. You don't need to call the help desk. You don't need to go find someone in IT. Our Google Guides have been on this platform for a while. So we didn't just do that at Store Support Center where all our corporate teammates are. We did that at the store. So our strategy for the stores was targeting 2 to 4 Google Guides per store. Now, some stores were more excited about this than others. We had certain stores that had over 5 Google Guides. We had some stores that had 1. But we were very adamant about every store needs at least 1, hopefully 2 to 4 Google Guides who are on Google early, who can start learning this platform and help us through this change. The Google Guide program, we were targeting about 7% of all of our global users. And it was a very, very successful program as far as getting the right people on the platform early so that they could learn. And again, thanks to our friends at Agosto for giving us this idea. This wasn't something that I would have come up with on my own, but so it's not such a we're not just introducing this thing new. And for the people that we are introducing it new to, there's probably somebody within walking distance that's already been on it that they can go ask questions of. Lastly, this bottom right white thing, that's actually a business card. It's a PDF of a business card I added here. And we handed these business cards out everywhere. We were dropping them on people's desks, in the cafe, across all of the stores on the non-sales floor area, just as another note to say, hey, we're going Google. Again, trying to eliminate that, hey, no one told me about this type excuse. And this referenced our 3 areas where you could go for help. You could go to, we set up an internal Google Help site that we still maintain and update today. I removed the URL just because it wasn't necessary for this presentation. Maybe in my own kind of weird humor, I added this second bullet point. You can Google. You got a question about Google, it's amazing what you'll find when you Google it, right? I mean, it comes right to the top of the search. How do I do this in Google Sheets? Google it. Don't throw your hands in the air and quit. Be a bit resourceful and use the tools that you've been provided so you can Google it. And then lastly, of course, talk to any Google Guide. Again, whenever we're targeting 7% of our global users, we've got at least one at every store. There's probably somebody within walking distance of you that's already been on this platform. So these were some of the tactics and strategies that we used to go Google and really promote it across our organization, and try again to make it so no one was really surprised that morning of whenever we were certainly a new Google shop. So what I'll talk about and really closing of my conversation here is really more, I wanted to take a minute to talk through what went well, what failed, and things that we never expected. Again, this was a huge disruption for us. We did everything in our power to promote it and be prepared from a back-end perspective, and making sure all the data was where it needed to be, all the exchange accounts and all the calendars and distribution lists. There was a huge effort on behalf of IT and Agosto to get all that set up, but we certainly went through a number of lessons learned and also things that we never expected. So I wanted to talk a bit about that. So first, what went well? One of the things that went great for us is that we created a steering committee during this migration. And so the steering committee was a group of leaders in the company. We were targeting director level and above, and we were trying to get director level and above from the key departments. So we had committee members from IT, from infrastructure, from store operations, from digital marketing, from legal, from asset protection, HR, communications, information security, and even Agosto sat on that steering committee. We met weekly, and we went over various challenges that we were having, and we made sure that the people on that steering committee were really the ones pushing this message and pushing this change across the organization. Again, trying, not that IT wasn't involved, but it wasn't an IT decision. This was a business decision. It was the business that was pushing it out and aware of it. So I thought the steering committee was a great idea and went very well. The amount of training that we offered our teammates, again, in partnership with Agosto, they had some really great training resources that we were able to leverage, was fantastic. It was you can sign up for in-person class. Those classes were recorded and then available on our shiny new YouTube channel. So you could go, if you couldn't make the class, you could go watch the class. And it wasn't just a YouTube video, it was our own private YouTube that included Schnuck teammates getting trained about Schnuck things, getting trained on the Google platform. So it was very relevant to our teammates. The two-factor authentication was fantastic. As the security guy, I'm big on implementing two-factor authentication across our organization. Google allowed me to do that basically overnight. Snap my fingers, we were live on Google, and we were a two-factor organization. And it's included for free, right? So I can't find any products that are just throwing two-factor in. Two-factor can get quite expensive and cumbersome to deploy. Again, overnight, we were two-factor authentication. So huge security win from that perspective. We saw immediate collaboration amongst the stores where we had certain stores that, or some of our processes in the stores were very Microsoft-y, where, every morning, every store manager had to update an Excel file, save the Excel file, email the Excel file to the division manager. The division manager would then have to open up, 15 separate Excel files and then paste every single piece of data into a master Excel file. And he would email that up the chain of command. So just ridiculous things that Microsoft make you do. And we immediately saw some of those processes change, where we had a sheet that was shared with all the store managers, and every morning they could quickly update the sheet. It was all one sheet that was all being updated in real time by multiple people at the same time. That sheet was then shared with the management that needed it. And we heard from our store teammates that it was things like that that allowed them to stop doing the tedious office busy work tasks and get those done more quickly, so they could be on the sales floor serving our customers where they really wanted to be. So it was removing some of those things. So the immediate collaboration was great. Data loss protection, DLP. Turning this on as the CISO security guy, immediately have visibility to what data is being shared externally, and we can put controls in place to say, I only want it to be shared with certain external domains. Awesome. Without a product like G Suite, again, that is possible, but it becomes very expensive, and it's very hard to manage. G Suite kind of gives you that out of the box. So a couple things there that went well. So full transparency here, it wasn't perfect. There's some things that failed. So Schnucks is a very big union employer here in St. Louis. Most of our store teammates are union. We're a proud union employer, but there's various contracts with the union. One of those contracts being you can't make a union teammate use their personal phone for business related things without reimbursing them. So we weren't prepared to go do all this reimbursement for text messages and things of that nature. So the two-factor authentication on unions became a bit of a challenge. Through YubiKeys and other things, we've been able to work out some of our more high-risk type teammates, but that was definitely a challenge and didn't work out so well. Collaborative inbox. That's another tool in G Suite. Really, this is my fault. This was on me on why this failed. We sort of as we were testing Google via the core IT move, we didn't realize the amount of usage our inboxes or our shared inboxes in Exchange were. We just didn't know that much about the business. So Google boasted this collaborative inbox. That's your solution. It's kind of like this quasi-cool ticketing system, and that's what you can use for your collaborative inbox stuff. Well, we took their word for it. We didn't test it, and we went live with it, and it was an absolute fail. Teammates hated it. We were not getting very business critical things done out of the Google collaborative inbox, and it just flat out didn't work. We weren't prepared to make it work. So fortunately, and really, again, hats off to Agosto, we were able to roll that back in under 24 hours, and we had everybody in the proper actual inbox that they needed, shared inbox. So we were able to kind of dodge that, but it was about 24 hours of pain, and not a lot of our business partners were too happy with myself or IT at that time. So lesson learned there, be sure you test everything out, just not from an IT perspective, from the actual business perspective. Also, what continues to be a challenge is G Suite is very hard on your executive admins. The calendar isn't really built to be a calendar that serves multiple people. So if you're an executive admin and you've got maybe 5 or 6 executives that you need to manage the calendar for, it's a lot more cumbersome and clunky than it was in the Exchange world. I definitely think Google is addressing those things. They're aware of those things. We see enhancements to this day. It's not great. But, of all the people to really not like G Suite, it was a bummer that they were the ones that have direct line to our C-suite. So we continue to work with them and give them white glove treatment to try to make it as easy as possible. But yeah, executive admins were a hard group to please when it came to this migration. And then really probably, no fault of really anyone. It's just hard to get people to go to the training classes. We had more than enough training offered. We had more than enough training available, but relatively low percentage of participation. And so, it gets frustrating as you try to manage this change. You hear people complaining about, oh, I can't figure it out. And you look, well, we addressed all these questions in the training and you never came. Well, that's not fair to say whenever they're doing a million things at once, trying to keep our stores alive and our customers happy in our stores. It in many ways can be too much to ask to come to a training. So, it was hard to manage through that change of the folks that just didn't have the time to get trained, and then we're just kind of thrown into this new technology. Those are the types of things that go away with time as they sort of are now forced to learn it, but still wasn't great. So things we never expected. It was incredibly challenging, and really, we're over a year into our global go live at this point. It still continues to be challenging to get people excited about Gmail as being something more than just email and calendar. I say it, we continue to have G Suite meetings across the organization. I say it, almost every week. If we bought G Suite for Gmail and calendar only, it was the worst decision we've ever made as a business. Email and calendar, from my perspective, is complete commodity. I could really care less who's doing your email and calendar. Those things don't matter. The power of Google comes with all the other collaboration tools that you get with Sheets and Docs and Slides and Forms and Hangouts and those types of things. If we're looking at this as a new email and calendar system, we've failed. And it's been a challenge to get people excited that it's more than that and training them on that. From a money savings perspective, we were able to get rid of our spam filter. So we used on the exchange world, they don't hold a candle to what Gmail out of the box can do from eliminating spam from your network. And we were paying a significant amount of money annually that would hit my budget for a point solution to get rid of that spam. Once we went G Suite, we saw all that spam getting knocked out by the power of Google, and our spam filter wasn't really doing anything anymore. So I was able to terminate that contract and ultimately save a significant amount of money to the company annually. So there's a huge return there that I was able to give back as far as an ROI is considered. Other things that we didn't expect is the technical knowledge of our end users is somewhat lacking. Again, we're a grocery retailer. We're not a technology company yet. We're not a technology company. So we employ people that are great at serving customers in a grocery retail establishment, not necessarily figuring out their way around the computer. So we have done a lot of different things to address the technical challenges we have, and training programs, and continuing to push the message and partner with these people to try to make it as seamless and as easy as them as possible. But we definitely had some work to do on the technical abilities of our end users, no doubt about it. And really, lastly, what I'll talk about what we never expected is our deep love for Microsoft Excel. As a company with such high volume and small margin, we didn't have a lot of back-end systems to do stuff. So at no fault of the business, there's so many things that have been created over the years at Schnucks via a incredible spider web of Microsoft Excel networked files, where one cell on a Microsoft file is getting populated by another tab on another Microsoft Excel file that's on a different server, that's being added up by another Microsoft Excel file over here, and interestingly, in some cases, on somebody's desktop, right? So there's a lot of risk there from a data perspective, but that's not something we can just say, hey, we're now Sheets, so forget about using Excel. And we never promoted that. We're not getting rid of Excel and Word, and we don't intend to, but we're certainly, I never expected how many Excel sheets we use to operate this business. So we're sort of just saying, hey, look, that's fine. That's something we've done in the past. But as we move forward, let's continue. Let's create and make new business processes in Sheets, and we'll slowly see the ones that are so embedded into Microsoft Excel become less relevant or eventually go away. Or again, like I said, we're not looking to get rid of Microsoft Excel. So let's talk a bit about what's next. We've been doing this for a year. What we're looking at doing now is we're in the process of deploying more and more Chromebooks. I think Chromebooks are awesome, 100% web-based. I can do everything I need. I've been on a Chromebook now for about a year and a half and have never needed a Microsoft computer. That's not true for all teammates. So not everybody's eligible for a Chromebook. There are certain web-based or legacy applications that we have to have, and Chrome can't install applications. Now, we've actually figured out a great way around that, introducing some remote desktop utilities to the Chromebook where you can remote desktop into a backend server and you can get to all of your, be it Internet Explorer or legacy applications that way. So we've sort of eliminated that excuse. So that's why we're seeing more and more Chromebooks go out. Chromebooks are amazing. We're buying them at volume. We're paying about $300 per Chromebook versus our Windows machines were costing us about $1,300 each. And that $1,300 did not include all the security stuff that my team has to put on it. That stuff that nobody likes, that slows it down, the antivirus, anti-malware, application control, all the things that make it just so hard to use a computer in a corporate environment. I don't have to do any of that on the Chromebook. It's a $300 purchase. That becomes a commodity piece of hardware. I don't want to lose them, but if they get lost or stolen, that data is secured, and I don't really have to sweat it anymore. So we're really, really happy with the Chromebook deployment. There's definitely some training that needs to happen before you give a user who's not familiar with it, but we're working that out through what we now call our Google training class. So as Agosto's contractual requirements for what they were doing for that change came to an end, we ended up kind of springboarding off of that and creating our own Google training class. So we're now training our end users, and we give them all an opportunity to sign up for training, and we broke it off into beginner and intermediate, advanced, and expert levels of training. So you can sort of pick what class you need to get into, and we're training our end users on Chromebooks and on all the applications that come with G Suite. So those are the things, and that training program we launched just a few weeks ago. Something we're excited about now is our new deli ordering system. Actually, if we have time, I put some slides at the end, Lindsay, that we can show some photos of it if we have time, but I'll just speak to it quickly here. Our deli ordering system is something that we're trying to do to address one of the larger complaints or opportunities that we get from a customer perspective. And it's interesting. I think I heard that the waiting in line at the deli at Schnucks grocery store is the most frustrating thing that our customers have over waiting in line to check out. So it's interesting. People are more frustrated waiting for their lunch meat than they are waiting in line to check out. So we put our heads together in IT, and we came up with a web application that's 100% running on Google Chrome hardware that is now in the stores. And you walk up to it, and rather than taking a ticket traditionally and waiting for your number to be called, you touch the screen, you enter your phone number, you tell it what you want from our deli based on the options that we're showing you, and then you can go shop. And you will get a text message whenever your order is ready to go. So you can come back and pick it up at that point. So there's no more waiting. You can shop rather than wait. So this has been a very huge success. We don't have it in all of our stores, but we have it in a handful of them, and the program is going great. And again, that's something that we're running on Google Chrome hardware now, and something that we wouldn't have been able to do prior to our deployment of G Suite. So we're also looking at Google Plus for our store teammates. There's an opportunity we have to for our store teammates to be better connected with corporate messaging, and also have the ability to collaborate a bit better with one another. And Google Plus is a great outlet for that. So we're doing some proof of concepts across a handful of stores for Google Plus. In some of our larger meeting rooms, we now have Google Meeting hardware. So our Hangout meetings and video conferencing become very seamless, and cameras there, the room is booked, and it's just one click and you're in the meeting. And then also some of the other parts of IT are beginning to test what the Google Cloud platform looks like, and what we can do there from an infrastructure and data management perspective. So a lot of things are kind of on the table for coming up with us in our relationship with Google. Some of these are more baked than others, but certainly things that we're looking forward to, and certainly things that we couldn't have even entertained the idea of prior to moving this organization to G Suite. So I'm right at like 45 minutes. That's really high level our story. It's been a heck of a ride. I've learned so much about Schnucks, about our teammates, and I've learned a lot about change management, that's for sure. But Lindsay, if we have some time left, I'm happy to take some questions. For those of you who want to maybe ask a question offline, I put my Twitter handle there at malware. I'm happy to continue this conversation on Twitter with you guys. But that's really what I got. So I'll ask Lindsay if any questions have been submitted. I'll do my best to address them.
Yeah, Joey, thank you so much. As you've mentioned, this is a journey, and I think your organization is still seeing transformational change in terms of processes and workflows that have become more effective with Google's tools. So we're excited to see what's next for y'all. You mentioned Agosto a few times, but for those of you on the call today that aren't familiar with us, Joey, if you could click to the next slide for just a second. Agosto has been a Tier 1 Google Cloud partner for over 11 years, and we help organizations, just like we did with Schnucks, evaluate Google's technologies, and should you choose to move forward, we're also the professional services arm of Google for that implementation. We also have a deep expertise in Google's cloud platform, including the infrastructure side, and also more advanced services like IoT, machine learning, and application development. And that work has actually won us a few awards from Google for their Partner of the Year. We can progress back a slide, and I do see I did get a few private chat questions come in. So Joey, perhaps I'll ask you a few, and then we'll close things out a bit early if I don't have any more. But one of them, you mentioned briefly that you guys did look at Office 365 for Microsoft as part of your evaluation.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit more and why you ended up choosing G Suite over Microsoft?
Okay. Yeah. So, we wanted to do our due diligence, and it was clear, I was excited about Google and my team was excited about Google. So we were obviously biased in that, but we wanted to keep ourselves in check. And we had other members of our management team that was a bit more skeptical, and rightfully so. I want to make sure that we vet everything out. So it's only fair that we give the main players in a decision like this all a fair shake. We're not just going to go, this is the one, and we're not going to look at anything else. So we went out and did executive briefings at Google's headquarters, and also really unbeknownst to Agosto and Google at the time, who were the pre-sales folks, we were also talking with Microsoft. So we were looking at Microsoft O365. We were sort of operating under the understanding that really at some point within the next 5 years, we're going to have to move our email and calendar infrastructure to the cloud, whether it's Google or O365 or something else. We're going to have to get off-prem at some point. So let's start evaluating that, and we did. So we went and we met with Microsoft, and we went through a whole afternoon of what they can do from an O365 perspective, and it was a very different take at collaboration than G Suite had. I remember some of the highlights for me sitting in those meetings, trying to be as open and not skeptical as I could be. There was a point where they were talking about what they're going to be releasing soon as like a competitor to Chromebook. And again, as the security guy, I raised my hand and I go, all right, that's neat. We're looking for more commodity, cheaper hardware to do, basic compute on. Let's talk a bit about what you're going to compete in a Chromebook, because I'm curious. Can this cheaper device, can I still download an executable? And the guy very proudly stood up and he was like, absolutely, you can still download an executable. I remember one of the another director at Schnucks at that point was just like, oh, that's the wrong answer for Joey. That's wrong answer. Why? Well, malware runs many times off of an executable. It has to install on your computer. And the beautiful thing about Chromebooks is you can't install anything on it. So you can throw as many malware executables at my Chromebook that you want. It's never going to install. It's a beautiful thing. And so I was just sort of like, yeah, okay. And so we continued to hear about how Microsoft innovates and how they're so secure And I'm thinking, how is Microsoft so secure, yet they're the inventors of Patch Tuesday, and Microsoft innovates really, they just keep, they innovated, the Zune in wake of the iPod, so they just weren't as impressive from a platform perspective, from a cloud, email, calendar, and all the bells and whistles we get G Suite perspective. I can't get into the pricing, but they were also not even close when it came to comparing the price tags.
And Joey, I think I also remember Bob, who's the CIO there at Schnucks. I remember him being most impressed with some of Google's machine learning and AI technologies that are built into the different applications. So making you work smarter and more efficient without really having to do anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was those things that we were sort of looking. I mean, we're looking at those things through that lens, and it was this Microsoft. Again, I maintain that Microsoft wasn't even close from a security or collaboration, a big data perspective at all. I mean, we were there and we said, okay, you can do this great sharing and collaboration. Right now, share me that Excel file. I want access to it. I want to be able to edit it from my mobile phone here. And it was, now you're calling us out. We want to see that happen. And they couldn't pull that off just in their offices, in their executive briefing offices. It was a fail. Whenever we asked the same questions at Google, they're like, piece of cake, here you go. Now you're on it. And look, I'm editing this on my mobile device now. So, I think that's not to say Microsoft can't be the right platform for your environment. But when we looked at it from what we were looking to accomplish and what our goals and initiatives and our what we're wanting to do from a customer service perspective, G Suite was the clear winner there.
Thank you for sharing that. So I have two more questions. Mitchell had asked, who did you have to sell internally on G Suite within the leadership team? So I think, Joey, you had mentioned that you and Dave had gone around to the different leadership organizations during their meetings to talk to them about it. So what business units were they, and how was that successful?
Sure. So so you mentioned Dave. Dave's my counterpart here in IT, and he at the time was the VP of infrastructure, and he's taken on some additional responsibilities since then. But Dave and I were the two main champions out of IT to do this. And as we talked, we realized we don't want this to be an IT decision. Yeah, Dave and I are excited about it. We want it to happen, but we don't want this to, again, be something that IT is just pushing down. And so what we did was we ended up taking our excitement and our passion for doing this to the store operation leads. And we showed them, hey, what's the hardest thing to do? And say, well, we're store support center. We have 100 stores we're trying to support, and some reason 100 stores get 100 different messages, and we're trying to speak with one voice of truth, right? We go, well, let's look at some of these technologies that we're evaluating now. We can do that for you if we bring in this Google. And they start going, oh, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. Let's do a deeper dive into this. So we ultimately got store operations buy-in and excitement to the same level that we had. And it was really kind of at that point, long before we really made the decision formally to go Google, that Dave and I were sort of high-fiving in the background. We go, if we got store operations behind this, this is something we're going to be able to pull off. Dave and I, we got a long road ahead of us of managing this change. But whenever it comes from store operations for store enablement and teammate execution, it became a huge win. And so getting again that steering committee, which had our operations folks on it, as well as so many other key departments, was absolutely huge in making it so this isn't just an IT decision. IT supports it. We want to do it, but ultimately what we're wanting to do is enable our business. And if our business agrees with us that this is how we can do that, or part of how we can do that, then we've all won. And it's not just another IT thing coming down the pipe.
That's great. And I think actually the last question, which seems very appropriate to close out the webinar with, is if you had to do this all over again, would you make the same decision and move to Google?
There's been times where it's been frustrating. No one wants to know. Usually, I talked about the executive admins and how they're a challenging group to keep happy. This was a huge change for them. They don't want to mess up the CEO's calendar. And so, there's certainly been times where where I've been challenged and had to maintain my patience and just work harder to help those guys out. So maybe at times, I've said, maybe this wasn't my best idea ever, but ultimately, no, I really don't have any regrets for this. It's interesting. We didn't bring Google for the handful of end users that still just don't like it. We brought Google's to enable our stores to better serve our customers. That's why Google's here, not for the handful of executive admins or the handful of IT people who really like Google, not even for the one or two people that are doing some really cool things with Google Apps Script and things that they weren't able to do before. It's not for those guys. We did this for our stores and our store teammates. We wanted to enable that business. So whenever I sort of take those, 1 to 2 day pains out of it, and I look at it from a higher level and go, let's remember why we really did this. I don't have any regrets about it. I think it was a great career decision. It's helped numerous folks on my team with their career progression. We've seen some of the benefits of making a change like this. One of our corporate values at Schnucks is try new things, and this certainly fell into that. This is a new thing. This is a big thing that we're trying. And as a result, we've seen some really great things happen that we wouldn't have been able to do if we were still the old legacy Exchange email server, trying to plug away and save and attach and send files around. So
well, I'm glad to hear that feedback too, because we feel that way at Agosto. We're certainly glad y'all made the switch, and I think it's been a successful one. I know we're at time, so I just want to thank Joey so much for your time and for sharing your journey here with us. For those of you who are interested in learning more about G Suite and what that would look like with your organization, or how you can partner with Agosto to make the move into the Google Cloud world, we'd love to talk to you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.